Welcome back, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Josh, I missed our weekly segments so very much.
I did too.
It hurt me at my core not to have you in my life. Now, we talk every week, I think.
We do.
Like, just socially, but
yes,
but this is a different thing. This is beyond friendship when you're podcasting together.
I've called you in vehicles traveling. I mean, I've called you from press boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I've called you from vehicles. I've called you with different people. I've called you in the car with girlfriends. I've called you in the car with colleagues. You know, I've done it from my own apartment. So, Paul, you've been a large part of my life. You traveled a lot of miles with me.
Yes,
I think over the time that I've talked with you too. So,
yeah, absolutely,
yeah, man, I miss it.
Yeah, that's by the way, that's probably my DoorDash. Is it DoorDash? Yes. Thank you. Just give it to this guy right here. I'm going to leave this in the interview.
What'd you get?
I'm going to leave this in. Chicken. I got golden chick. Golden chick. So,
not familiar.
Yeah. Oh, it's a Texas staple. Garrett and I are big fans of golden chick. Right. I don't think Garrett minds me saying that he's a big fan of golden chick.
I love golden chick, especially their wings.
Yeah. Today I got tenders. Just going outside the box. Golden chick, not the sponsor of this segment.
If they want to, though.
Yeah. But nobody's telling you no, golden chick.
Come on board.
Your money's green, just like everyone else's. Josh, let's start off with last night. Kansas, UCF, they had no problems. They looked exactly, how we kind of thought. Before we get to Colorado and North Dakota, I want to back that up because the beginning of our show today is a lot of Colorado and North Dakota. So we'll back that up for a second because I want your opinions on KJ Jefferson, who I'm very big on at UCF and fitting in that offense, but I'm getting he and DJU kind of fit in the similar thing to me where you're watching them, you know that they can do something and you're like, just be an athlete, man. Just do it. And it's like they're both humming along at 90% of the speed limit when they could certainly hit the pedal to the floor.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thought. KJ, once again, I think he's still recovering from the trauma that he went through last year on the Arkansas Razorbacks. They put him through a lot physically. They did not protect him very well. And so I think he's still kind of recovering from that. He was not particularly accurate last night. He was effective at times. I mean, his seven throws went for 164. So his 7 completions he had went for 164. So, I mean, he was trying to, they're pushing the ball a little bit, and obviously their playmakers made some plays too. I think it's going to be a mixed bag this year. And I think this team's got the talent to be really good. I think if they had a better quarterback, we were talking about them as a Big 12 championship contender. I don't think they are, not just because of KJ, but I would say the defense as well. I'm not sold on UCF's defense, but also I do think KJ Jefferson, I don't know if he's a Big 12 championship level quarterback on this team, in my opinion.
Yeah. And maybe that changes. Look, he's got a really good,
Sure.
the one thing I will say for both DJU and for KJ Jefferson is they have excellent quarterback coaches coaching them, but coaching only goes so far. I think that when you see guys in their 5th year on another school or two, you're kind of where they're going to be, and you just kind of got to maximize what you're going to get out of them, and then have everybody usually. You want the quarterback to raise the level of play of everybody else. Well, this has to be inverted. The other people have to maybe bail out the quarterback a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I just don't feel like we're going to see him return to being old KJ. I don't know why that guy, it feels like he's gone. Mm-hmm. I hate to be one bad year or whatever, but even watching him last night, he's also not a really good passer. That's so I think the one thing about this is he was never some super accurate, precise passer in the way a Shedeur Sanders is. And so I think their rushing attacks what's going to be what's best for them. I feel them, West Virginia, K-State might all be in the same boat. Now, funny thing is, you could make an argument out of all those teams, RJ Harvey might be the kind of most effective player out of all that entire group. But also they've got good wide receivers. Like, can KJ utilize, Xavier Townsend and Kobe Hudson the best of his ability? Or as much as a quarterback could. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he is good enough to do all that. So I want to see it. I want to see it like week by week. Because last night, I mean, for as good as the win was, like, not particularly impressive from KJ, I thought.
Yes. It's not. But let's get it. Like, we'll get into the week here in a minute, like the actual rest of the week. But I don't think we need to talk about Kansas too much and Utah too much. But I do think the common thread there is Jalen Daniels and Cam Rising look fine. Totally fine. By the way, shout out Caleb Lohner, caught a touchdown late. In
he
the
did.
Game.
Yeah.
Caleb Lohner caught a touchdown from basketball to football. First game out, he scores a touchdown. I do have a feeling he's going to play a part in a bigger game because of just the athletic mismatch he will provide in key situations. Brant Key, like, the news for Utah is everyone's fine. Brant Keithy's fine. Cam Rising is fine. Their Roth IRAs are probably doing great right now. Right. They'll get together and talk about how the market did this week after the game because they're older dudes, but they look fine, totally fine. And so that's great news for Utah. Jalen Daniels, they didn't even have to ask him to do all that much. He did
not record a rush, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and the numbers that I was looking at.
Why would you?
Right.
Again, they are in their rushing game, Kansas, at a point with Highshaw and Neal, where Jalen Daniels rushes don't have to be called all that much, where it can just be all right, well, you guys are going to give that to me. I'm going to take it, and then that's going to be where it is. So I think that that's a great thing for them. But Kansas and Utah, your thoughts on pretty much exactly what we thought we'd see from two of the teams that are going to be at the top of the conference more than likely.
It's kind of like going home when you're in college, like going to the bar, like maybe seeing that girl from high school that you're super into. You're like, oh, wow, she's still bringing it. Okay, great. Like, really nice to see you. That's how it felt with Jalen Daniels, and that's how it felt with Cam Rising. It was just nice to see him. It was really nice to see those two guys out there. And for KU, man, I mean, to have a team that has got a number 22. I remember a couple of years ago when they snuck by South Dakota. I think what was Lance Leipold's first game as head coach. To see them take a Lindenwood team and just beat the brakes off them, as they should, right? But, to see a 27-point second quarter, they just, like, Kansas football is in such a different place. And to see Jalen Daniels was really refreshing. And the two running backs, the top two running backs, to say, had a great night. They were fantastic on the ground. We'll see what that means later on. It was just nice to see him. And Cam Rising, I mean, he had 10 completions, 5 of them were touchdowns. So nice night from Cam as well. Yeah. I mean, all these teams will have significantly tougher challenges in the coming weeks, but it was just nice to see them, the two quarterbacks. I do my best not to overreact to these games at all, but just my only thought was nice to see you guys again. We missed you.
Yeah. Okay. Now I don't think Colorado and North Dakota State, anything we say is going to be an overreaction. And it is just one game. But if you ask me what the difference between Colorado last year and this year is, I will say the patch of the conference on their uniforms. I think the offensive line is a little bit better. The defensive line made some key plays late in the game.
Yeah.
But early in the game, they were absent completely. Offensive line is better, and that's good. But they still have no faith to run the ball, as evidenced by getting the ball back with 2 minutes left and throwing passes until they got a pass interference call that essentially sealed the game up for them. They were not running the ball in that situation. They were throwing the ball, and that tells me that not much has changed, and they will not get away with that, maybe even next week against Nebraska. That is something that they're going to have to be very concerned about, and because we don't know about Nebraska yet, but I do know that you are not going to be able to just throw on that defense and sit back and let Shadur be the badass that he is, and he's legit badass. Travis Hunter is amazing.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's amazing. He is something we haven't seen in a very long time. Jimmy Horn Jr., very good. Like, they have 3 NFL receivers, or whatever Travis Hunter's going to be. But they have 3 NFL players at wide receiver on the field at any given moment: LeJontay Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr., and Travis Hunter. And they've got an NFL first-round pick throwing the ball to him. But you cannot live on that alone.
Yeah, like they can't bring any pressure from the middle because they don't have good enough defensive linemen to open up gaps for their linebackers. And they can't bring pressure from the outside because their linebackers aren't fast enough, athletic enough to get to the quarterback. Like, I'm not sure what the final numbers were last night in terms of the defensive situation. So let's see, they had 7 TFLs and 2 sacks. Yeah, like they made a concerted effort to bring pressure because, I mean, when they played like zone of any kind, it just got shredded. They were not great in coverage. And like Travis Hunter wasn't particularly good either in coverage. Now, like, I think like anytime I watch him play on either side of the ball, especially last night, like they needed him as a wide receiver. That was kind of what was needed. So I can really I'll forego judgment on the cornerback part of things, but their defense is just like, honestly, Paul, too, that they look small. The defense did not look big. They don't look like they've got guys that can reach the quarterback. And what was the kid's name from Texas Tech a few years ago? They went to the defensive lineman end.
Tyree Wilson?
Yes. Like Texas Tech ends up having a guy like that. You know, remember Dominic Williams left. But like that guy was a beast as a freshman. You know, Colin Oliver was a really good pass rusher as a freshman. These Big 12 schools, guy with a weird name outside, you know, I'm terrible with names right now. K-State, the guy who went to the Chiefs, 32nd, whatever it was.
Golly.
Yeah, you know,
I know who you. Yeah.
It's a Friday afternoon. All right,
Yeah.
and I've had a very long week. Yeah, so like you, these teams are developing talent and getting guys who are, you know, end up being really good defensive players and like look the part. They've got nobody who looks the part. They've got nobody on defense who looks the part. Travis Hunter does not actually look the part. He's really, really slender and small. He looks the part for a Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
But doesn't look the part for a Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, once again, also, I do think he actually is probably the best player in college football, to be honest. I don't think it's unfair to say. So that's a nice trump card to have. But like football, skill players are really fun and fantastic. But if you don't win at the line of scrimmage, it doesn't really matter. That's why the championship team last year, Michigan, pushed a lot of teams around on offense and was very, very stern on defense. So
yeah,
Colorado is, I'm not saying they're trying to contend for a national championship, but like we're talking about like trying to be a conference champion. They don't look good enough. They don't look big enough, which is like weird because like everybody's like Deion's recruiting well. It's like, but recruits who are good normally look a certain way. And they don't look like that at all. They don't look like at all.
You know, last year, Garrett and I talked about this when he was talking about their roster, and he's like, y'all don't know who we have coming. And we're like, well, yeah, we all do. Yeah. I mean, they're transfers. We saw them play, but these aren't high school kids that you are like picking out of the thing. Like, this is not Art Briles finding 3-star kids who run 4.4s.
Yes.
That everybody's overlooked. Like, you are picking guys out of the transfer portal, which sometimes is great. Especially when you brought those kids from Jackson State yourself. But also, like, you know, it could be better. And you have to, like, he's got to figure out the balance between high school recruiting and the portal.
But does he want to?
I don't think he wants to.
That's the big question, right?
I don't think he wants to because I think he's tried, but I think that he doesn't like not that I don't think Deion thinks he's above talking to high school coaches, but from what I
like the hard part of recruiting, I can tell you that.
Like,
he
but
can
also
recruit because he's Deion.
But it's also harder for him because like Deion can't just like sneak into Mumford High School without like somebody like.
But this is why you put ace recruiters on your staff.
Yeah, and he, you know what, here's the mistake that he's made so far. He's got Pat Shurmur, who's an NFL coach.
Dumb.
He's got defensive coordinators that were not the best recruiters. You know, he had Sean Lewis, then he sent them away, and he wasn't going to have Sean Lewis for very long anyway. That was always going to be like a stopover for Sean Lewis. But like, he's got to get recruiters on that staff. He's got a bunch of guys who played in the NFL, and that's fine for part of your staff, but are those guys out there recruiting? He does not have the ace recruiter right now. I think he did have Tim Brewster for a minute, but Tim Brewster is a bit of a hit and run guy.
Alabama paid the GM, CEO, whatever it is.
Yeah.
$800,000.
Uh-huh.
That's like a recruiting position. That's like the players like this guy position. That's like kind of what that is. All right. Deion Sanders, he can rely on like his personality to get certain guys, but like if you're attracting a certain level of player, you have to like be selecting. All right, like this is where I see for this guy. Like this is like, or like it doesn't need to be a bunch of 4 stars. It can be like, look, this 3 stars got size that we need. We need to bring him in. Like they need to kind of like look at the rosters. This was my problem when he said the Louis comment. When he's like, I'm bringing my Louis with me, because you can't tell me there weren't any players at all on Colorado's roster that you could look at and say, hey, this guy could be good. This guy could be a rotation player for this. This guy would be nice to have if a player went down. But instead he was like, I'm bringing my Louis with me, hit the road. It's like, you haven't even looked at the roster to see if there's any player worth developing or keeping or who is in a weird situation with the last staff. Like, it feels like it's almost like Jerry Jones, the Cowboys. I know he's not really running things anymore, but like the big knock on Jerry is that like, was Jerry grinding all the film necessary to make decisions for his team that like other GMs were doing? And look, the Cowboys have been good for a while, but like, I don't think Jerry was doing that. Now, luckily it seems like Stephen Jones actually does that. Like I will give Stephen credit. Like it's like he's putting together completely crap teams every year. They're decent.
Yeah, Stephen
but like
Jones
Jerry,
and Clay are killing it, but
right. Like Jerry's not like
Will is, but I don't know about Stephen. We'll that remains to be seen. Another topic for another day.
Like Stephen, yeah. Like that's kind of how I feel about Deion. It's like when I look at that defensive line, I'm like, did you think about this roster at all?
Yeah.
Like who are these guys? Like who are these dudes rushing the passer? Because like they're not going to get home. They're just not getting the Big 12. If they lead the league, if they're top half of the league in sacks, I will be shocked. Or it's because they bring a ton of pressure. Also, they weren't particularly good at covering anybody last night either. Mm-hmm. And like this isn't a super fast North Dakota State team. I know they're good FCS wise, but like where those teams typically lose is the athletic and speed of disadvantages. I heard Bud Elliott say this the other day. He was like, spread them out. And Colorado will spread them out and win that way. On offense, that worked. On defense, they got spread out. They got punched in the mouth, and they were allowing stuff over the middle too. Like it was pretty equal opportunity. I mean, the Hail Mary got caught at the end of the game. The throw was short. Yeah. I mean, they didn't do anything, pretty that well on defense last night.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last thing we'll talk about, like the rest of the Big 12. I mean, not that many intriguing. I'm curious about Arizona State, Wyoming could be, I think that's a good opening test for them.
Yeah.
Houston and UNLV is really interesting. Yeah. That's going to be a really tight game. But I do want to use most of the time we have left to talk about West Virginia and Penn State. I'm picking West Virginia to win the game. I know that Penn State wins most of the time when they're favored by a touchdown or more, and they are. They're 8.5, but I think this one means a lot to the many in Morgantown there. So I think the Mountaineers are primed to send a message.
Yeah, so I'm going the other way on this one. I just think that these two teams are going to, well, I mean, if Andy Kotelnicki runs what he's run at Kansas, both of these teams are going to try and accomplish pretty similar things. And I just think that when it comes to that kind of matchup, Penn State's just got the better personnel on the off. Now, I know West Virginia's line's very good, but and you could say Garrett Green wasn't the guy he is now, but they didn't look excellent last year when they played Penn State. And so I think the problem I have is like, man, West Virginia's offense is at their best when they're just really hitting that run game really well. And look, maybe that three-headed monster of Jaheim White, CJ Donaldson, and Garrett Green is cash tomorrow. Maybe it's all cylinders. I wouldn't be completely shocked. But like if the game is decided in the trenches, I'm gonna go with Penn State. And that's kind of the thing. Like West Virginia is not they spread you out some, but like it's because they're trying to open things up for the running game. It's not because like they've got great wide receivers. Like this is not, the Gary Jennings, David Sills type situation here. This is more of the three best players are all in the backfield as rushers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's what concerns me. Cause like Penn State's front is like, they're not Michigan good. They're not Ohio State good, but they're pretty good. They're still pretty good. I mean, that's those two. Their 2 losses last year. So I just think Penn State's going to win up front, especially this part of the season where everybody's fresh. I think that's where they get them. Also, 11 a.m. I wish this game was a night game.
Oh, I'm sure that the Morgantown folks.
Yeah, this game should have been a night game.
Yeah, that's. I think that's some Big Ten sauce cooking right there, getting that big noon kickoff and. Whatever. I mean,
it's great that West Virginia's involved in Big New Kickoff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here's the thing, Paul, if they win tomorrow, we need to have a serious conversation about how good that team can be, because the way that they would win, unless they all of a sudden start chucking the ball around the yard and they've got like 2 NFL wide receivers and Penn State couldn't cover anybody, they're going to win because of their dynamic ability to confuse teams with how they run the football and how good their guys who run the football are. And also how much their defense improved and met the challenge. And that would be a really interesting, if they do win, the conversation around Neil Brown for me completely changes. It goes from, I'm proud of you last year for staving off getting fired and you had a really good year and I'm glad you took play calling in your own hands, to you just did all that and developed it all the way into we prepped, we drilled, game 1, top 10 team comes in, we beat you.
Yeah.
And that would be a significant moment, I think, in West Virginia football history, because, they had an innovative offensive mind in Rich Rod. He's one of the, honestly, he's kind of the college football father of the spread option. Neil Brown, kind of readopting the spread option and getting it done would be just a massive resurgence for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Find him on YouTube. He's a star in the making, people. He's a star in the making.
Too kind.
Yes. Josh, where's your high school game tonight?
Actually, it's in Little Rock. So Arkansas played at War Memorial Stadium tonight. Last night, against the UAPB. Benton and Bryant, they call it the Salt Bowl. It's the 50th playing. It might have 25,000 people there tonight at War Memorial Stadium. So that's where I'll be.
Oh,
sweating it out, thugging it out on the sidelines. It's going to be hot as hell, and I'll be there for it.
Well, as someone I've done sidelines maybe 20 times in my whole career, and I was lucky enough when I had to do it for college games. It was always later in the season, so it wasn't that bad. But I've had to do it for I had to do it for a high school game in the summer, an all-star game, and thought I was going to die. Literally when they dumped the Gatorade bath on the coach, I dropped the wireless and ran.
I'm put me
too. Me too.
I'm laying on the ground in the Gatorade bath.
Me too.
Me, yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. We'll have him every week. We're going to rotate the time of the segment so that, you're not always kind of, you've got to play it. You got to play it loose. So you don't just, well, Josh is going to be on at 5:30. Well, that's today. Next week, it might be 3:30. We don't know.
I'm all over the place.
We don't know. Yeah, I know. He floats like a butterfly and stings like a well, he doesn't sting at all. He just floats like a butterfly. Josh, we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. See y'all.
This is 365 Sports.